We are continuing to follow breaking news at this hour. Congressman Doug LaMalfa has died. And this morning, we're going to welcome in political analyst Kevin Riggs to kind of get a little bit more perspective. And Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this morning, especially on such short notice.
My pleasure, Mike, Brandy.
And again, we know that you've obviously been very familiar with a lot of the political spectrum of Northern California, including Congressman Doug LaMalfa. So if you could, before we dive into what the effects this could do in the House, who was Congressman Doug LaMalfa to you?
Well, I knew Congressman LaMalfa when he was first elected to office in the legislature. He was elected to the Assembly, and then he was elected to the Senate in 2010, went on to Congress in 2013. So I had pretty regular dealings with him, and he was a staunch conservative in keeping with his district. He, for example, opposed same-sex marriage. He was a big supporter of gun control laws and those kinds of issues, again, in keeping with his district. But LaMalfa really was well-liked at the Capitol. He had a way of being able to talk to folks from the other side of the aisle, from talking to his opponents. He was somebody who would talk with people, not just simply talk at people. And so, you know, my dealings with him he was always willing to talk. He was cordial. We both had gone to Cal Poly. We both loved classic Mustangs. So we had those issues in common that we could talk about beyond politics. So to summarize, a conservative politician, but somebody who could work with his opponents and who was relatively well liked.
You know, Kevin, this really comes as a shock to a lot of people this morning. Even, you know, I mentioned earlier in our newsroom when we started to hear the news, it was, you know, very, very shocking for sure. You know, what do you anticipate will be the impact of his sudden passing?
Well, it is a surprise. You're right, Brandy, because there was no indication that he was in poor health. He was 65 years old. This kind of reminds me of when Congressman Bob Matsui passed away in the early 2000s, who had represented Sacramento. Doris Matsui's husband represented Sacramento for years and years, and it was a big shock. So beyond the initial surprise, obviously there needs to be a system put into place for replacement. And there's some little bit of time to think about how that's going to happen. But essentially, the governor has to call a special election. And typically they'll try and call a special primary to consolidate with a regularly scheduled election. Well, in this case, the election's not until June. So I anticipate that Governor Newsom will call a special election much sooner than that. And then 60 days after that, there's a general election to find a replacement. Now, I will say that just in terms of the politics of the current California map, Congressman LaMalfa's district was one of those that was targeted in that recent ballot measure to redraw the maps. So it was going to become much less conservative, and so that's going to determine which candidates jump into this race.
Excuse me.
Now, Kevin, again, this had been a very sudden announcement this morning, and it's still maybe even too early to talk about the ramifications. Just talk about the kind of representative he was for his district, because again, we throw out the terms that this is a rural area, but I mean, this is a very important area in terms of Northern California, not just in terms of identity, but also economically. There were a lot of folks within that realm who maybe even looked at him as being a representative that actually did kind of fit the mold of what their community was like.
No question. Doug LaMalfa was in many respects in step with the interests of so many people in his district, a rural district, an enormously large district. He was widely considered to be an expert on water issues, on natural resources and forestry. He, again, took traditional conservative viewpoints. He was a skeptic of climate change, for example, wasn't sure that wildfires were due to climate change, but more had to do with forest management. Doug LaMalfa, though, again, was in keeping with his district, filling out the role of a conservative. And so it's in terms of his expertise, he did serve on the Agricultural Committee, he served on the Natural Resources Committee, and was a key vote in many pieces of key legislation designed to protect forestry and to protect water rights for farmers in Northern California. He was a longtime rice farmer. I believe his farm, I've been there once, I believe it was in Colusa County. So he had grown up around agriculture and around water issues and knew those issues very well. And again, really represented the conservative mindset of so many of his constituents throughout Northern California.
Kevin, we again appreciate your perspective on this and talking to us about this this morning.